Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for all your support. I'll be using this for today's video. This is basic bodies, just normal basic bodies, but here I have extra 5 inches. This line is starting line, shoulder line, neck width of 3 inches, half of my shoulder measurement 8 inches plus half inch seam allowance 8.5 because my shoulder measurement is 16. I came down by 1 inch and connected it back to the neck width. Armhole midpoint, I came in by 0.75 and connected it back. This is bust line. This line is my bust point. I came down by 1 inch, half length. From this line to this center line here is half of my bust span measurement. My bust span measurement is 9 inches. Half of my bust span measurement is 4.5 plus half inch seam allowance because I'm going to cut it. Half inch seam allowance. So I mark half inch on both sides for the dart, but I might adjust the dart to 1 inch on both sides. So now I'm going to mark the dart. I'll check what I have here. The midpoint, I have 11 inches. I have 11 inches. Midpoint is 5.5. Midpoint is 5.5. This 5.5, I'll connect it to this point. This is armhole midpoint. I connected it to this point. This line is from my shoulder to my bust point. I went down by 1 inch. This line. So this is midpoint. I marked half inch on both sides. This half inch, I'll connect it back to this point. I've connected it. I will extend this line by 1 inch. I'll connect it back to the armhole. So here you blend it. So this dart, I want to extend it to 1 inch on both sides. But it's okay like this. You can use half inch on both sides. It's okay. But I want 1 inch on both sides. From this center line, I'll mark 1 inch. From this center line, I'll mark 1 inch. I'll connect it to this point. If you want, you can use your dart. This half inch on both sides is perfectly okay. But I want 1 inch on both sides. So I will extend it to the seam allowance. So I will ignore this. I'm going to cut it on this line. So now I'm going to take the measurement. This is quarter of my bust measurement plus 2 inches seam allowance plus half inch. I have half inch here. I'll add that half inch back. This is my waistline. My waist is 40. 40 divided by 4. Quarter of my waist measurement is 10 inches. So 10 inches plus 2 inches, 1 inch on both sides. That if you're using half inch on both sides, you will add 1 inch. If you're using 1 inch on both sides, you will add 2 inches. So I'm using 1 inch on both sides, I will add 2 inches, which is 12 inches. Plus 2 inches seam allowance. I'll connect the line. I'm going to mark the neckline. I have neck width of 3 inches. So I will mark neck 3 inches up, but I will not mark it straight like the last video. I will mark it slant. It will be slant. So instead of marking 3.5 inches, I'll mark 4 inches because I want to put zip to the high neck up. I want to add zip up to the high neck. But sometimes you can add your zip by the side if you don't want your zip to be on your high neck, or your zip will stop before the high neck. So if you're making yours like that, you will add half inch seam allowance. But I'm going to add 1 inch seam allowance. That 1 inch seam allowance is zip allowance. So I'll mark 4 inches on this line. I'll now mark it straight. From this shoulder line, neck width, from the neck width, I'll put it this way. I'll mark 4 inches. So this side, I'll decide how many inches that I want. I'll use 2 inches. 2 inches. I marked 2 inches. This 2 inches is together with my seam allowance. So I'm not going to add seam allowance on this shoulder measurement. From this shoulder measurement to my bust point is 10 inches plus half inch seam allowance, 10.5. I now went down by 1 inch. This is 11.5 from shoulder. What I have here for seam allowance is 1 inch. When I join the shoulder, it will go up. I'll have half inch left to join it to the lower part. This is starting line. From this line, I'll mark my neck depth. I'll use 7 inches. Neck width of 3 inches. From this line, I'll go up by 2 inches. 2 inches, 2.5. 2 inches. So on this line, I'll mark these 2 inches. I'll mark 2 inches. I'll connect it. So from this starting line, I'll come down by 1 inch. One inch. So from this line, I'll connect it to this point, to the 2 inches. I'll bring this 1 inch down. I'll mark 2 inches. So from this 1 inch, I'll connect it to this point. Okay, so half of this, I'll mark half inch up, or 1/4 of an inch. Because I want to curve the sweetheart neckline, I'll use this French curve. You can use 1/4 of an inch, you can use half inch. So what I used now is half inch instead of 1/4 of an inch. So you can use half inch or 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to cut it this way. If you want, you can curve this side. So I'm going to cut it. So this is what I have. This is for this side. If you want, you can notch this part like 1/4 of an inch before you sew, or after joining the back one, after joining the front and the back, you can notch this part, or before you join. So if you want, you can use your underbust measurement, and if you want to pad your own, you will use your underbust measurement. I'll put a link in the description. You watch that video so that you know how to go about it if you want to pad your own, if you want it as bustier. So I'm going to get the back one. I'll use this to cut my main fabric. This is the back pattern. It's just basic bodice. Neck width of 3 inches and neck depth of 0.25. I connected it to the neck width. Shoulder slant 1 inch. Midpoint I curve it. 1/4 of my bust measurement plus 2 inches seam allowance. 1/4 of my waist measurement plus 1 inch for that and 2 inches seam allowance. On this side zip line, this is 1 inch zip allowance. On this waistline here, this is chest line. I came down by 1 inch, half length, and seam allowance to join it. I extended this line to seam allowance. This is half length. I came in by half inch and connected it back and marked 1 inch for no zip allowance. So I'll trim it off. I'll trim this off and cut it. It's just basic bodice. Of 0.25 and neck width of 3 inches. So I've cut it. This dart is half inch on both sides. Half of my bust pan measurement 4.5. My bust pan measurement is 9 inches, half is 4.5. I mark ½ inch on both sides. So you can use this pattern to do a lot. You can use it to make blouse, you can use it to make dress, you can use it for flare dress, you can use it for pencil dress. You can add pencil skirt to it to make a pencil dress. You can add circle skirt on it to make a circle dress. You can add peplum to it also to make a blouse. Please like, share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.